Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you are listening to, we are always here on YouTube. This is That 70s Pod with Bryan Lee, myself, Andrew, here in Orlando. It is that, well, we always talk about weather when we start. It is that cold, chilly time of year. It is December. It was the final weeks, final days of December, going to the Christmas time. We had a great time talking about Thanksgiving a few weeks ago. We touched on Evil Knievel boxing. And now we're going to wrap around to finish up the year talking about the holidays once again, focusing on the 70s as we talk about, well, we always talk about memories and reminiscing. And we're going to talk about Christmas today. As mentioned, this is That 70s Show with Bryan Lee. So let's bring him on in. Bryan Lee, hello. Hello today. How's your December? How's your day so far?
Well, it's been a busy time. As I've mentioned to in previous episodes, I work at a grocery store. I'm in charge of the dairy department, and just a real busy day today. People getting milk and eggs and cheese and butter, and whatever they need to make hot dishes or pies or whatever they're getting ready for the holidays, bars, cookies. They have to come through dairy to get a lot of the ingredients they need to bake all that stuff, and whatever they're planning for their Christmas meals. I have a lot of the staples in the dairy department, so very, very busy today, and wound up getting home a little bit late, and I contacted Andrew and I said let's get the podcast going, and we should mention right off the bat, Andrew, that we are going to be talking about Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, from the 70s, and also share your memories growing up in the 2000s and what you might remember from the late 90s. And this will be an episode that I guess will have to hold you over for 2 weeks, because Christmas Eve, Christmas Day falls right in the middle of the week next week. So we won't be recording, and then we'll be back to do probably a New Year's Eve special, a New Year's Day special. So we'll have one more holiday that we'll be touching on, and that's what's going on. So Christmas is what we're going to be talking about today, and hope everything's going well for you in Orlando. It's about 30 degrees here, really damp outside though. And if you've ever grown up in the Midwest and you go, how can it be damp when it's 30 degrees? And humidity is still a thing, even in the wintertime. In Orlando, there's a lot of humidity where it feels sticky all the time. And it does in the Midwest too. In the summer, it makes it very uncomfortable. But that humidity also carries over into the wintertime. So it just feels wet today. It's not raining or snowing or anything, but the air just feels wet. And it's a very uncomfortable feeling when it's 30 degrees and the air feels wet.
That's actually the same thing here. I mean, it's 77 degrees right now, but it's been raining a lot, and it rained a lot again today. So if you have like any injuries or aches, like you can feel it in your bones, you can feel it in your feet because it's just kind of cold and wet everywhere. Uh, Quick question: are you guys selling a lot of eggnog? Because that is not a thing in Florida. Are people buying eggnog at the store?
Yeah, I put eggnog on the shelf in early November, a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. I put it up for sale, and it kind of went sparingly. Around Thanksgiving, people started to buy it a little more, and then it tailed off for maybe a week. But now I sell it by the half gallon, and I sold 100 of them last week, and this week it's really flying. So yeah, eggnog a really big thing, and I couldn't even tell you what eggnog tastes like, Andrew, because I've never had it. The premise of having a frothy milk with that's rich in eggs, just and whatever other spices they put in it, just doesn't sound appealing to me. So I think I tried eggnog when I was a little kid, didn't like it, and I've never had it since.
Same. I've tried it once. We were at the Mall of America a few years ago, and there was a sample, like Auntie Cookies or Auntie Anne's had a sample of it. Only time I've ever tried it. And we're talking about memories, and we like talking about food. We talked about Thanksgiving, so I'm gonna ask my first question, and we could take it from there. When it comes to Christmas time, what seasonal food do you like looking forward to? What's like a Christmas like foodie or snack that you always enjoy since you were a kid? I'm curious.
Well, when I was a kid in the 70s, Christmas Eve, my brother and I always got pizza, just a store bought pizza that was frozen that my mom cooked up, and then my mom and dad, after my brother and I were done eating, they would have oyster stew. And I don't even know what oyster stew is, but they had it every Christmas Eve, and it sounded nasty. So I'm glad they didn't give it to my brother and I. Pizza was fine. And Christmas Day was kind of a repeat of Thanksgiving. Andrew, my mom would go all out with the turkey and dressing and pumpkin pie and mashed potatoes and gravy and rolls and I don't remember if she made green bean hot dish, but and I know we didn't have wild rice or anything like that, but it was kind of a repeat of Thanksgiving, is what we always did for Christmas dinner.
So, other than that, is there ever any snacks or soda or something that comes out to this day that you get excited about when it's Christmas time?
Well, we didn't. My parents weren't soda drinkers, so we never really had soda in the house. If we did, it was I don't know if you remember a brand called Shasta. Um, Shasta used to be like 10 cents a can. So, they would buy or they we'd go to the grocery store and they would let me pick out 10 cans for $1. So that's the soda that we had growing up. And we didn't have any other special kind of drink. Uh, my parents were beer drinkers, so that's what they drank. And my brother and I had Shasta Pop.
Do you remember that Santa pop, that Santa soda that came out, that giant thing?
Yeah, that came out sometime in, I want to say, the late 80s. I remember seeing that for the first time at a grocery store that doesn't exist anymore in Richmond. Um, and yeah, it was a, a big bottle. I think it was a gallon, or maybe not quite a gallon. It was more than a half gallon, certainly. Um, so maybe it was bigger than a 2 liter. Let's put it this way: it's probably 3 liters, but not quite a gallon. And Canada Dry, I think, made it, and it was sort of a punch with either ginger ale or Seven Up or something of that nature. Um, and it was actually pretty good. And we bought it for quite a few years because when we started having kids, you guys all seemed to like it okay. So yeah, we bought Santa Pop for quite a few years. But I don't. Working in a grocery store now, I haven't seen that in in at least the 5 years that I've been at the store. So I don't know if they make it anymore or not.
I can't find it. I can't even find it at Google. I can't find a picture of it because I remember it being at Super Value back in the day. And the only thing I could see nowadays is like Sprite has like this cranberry like seasonal flavor that comes out all the time.
Right.
I don't even drink soda that much, but I have to like get that every year. Um I don't
And I've had that too, and it kind of tastes like it, but it's not quite like the Santa Pop. So yeah, I don't know why Canada Dry doesn't make it anymore.
unless Canada Dry just has their own. I might have to look that up. Maybe they have something going on. But you
Well,
text me.
they do make Canada Dry makes ginger ale, and they do have a cranberry flavored ginger ale, and I don't know if I've tried it or not. So maybe that's what the Santa Pop is then.
No, that's a good point. It probably is. You text me that you want to do. We're going to do Christmas memories. So, do you have notes? Like, where's this start for you? Because like I have my memories of like being a kid with Christmas, like little things here and there, of how we did stuff, our traditions growing up. But what's like your earliest Christmas memories, or like how do you want to start today? Going back to the 70s.
Well, we're going to start with Christmas trees, and I can remember that we had an artificial tree, and it wasn't even green. It was a silver Christmas tree um, that I would help my mom put together, and then we had blue bulbs that we put on it, and sort of a bluish white tinsel type thing. And then my mom had this color wheel. I don't know if you would know what a color wheel, Andrew, what it is, Andrew, but it's like this. It's this lamp that you put on the floor, and then this plastic wheel spins around really slow, and it had four colors: blue, green, red, and yellow. And and so the tree would always be changing colors. And since we had a silver tree or a metallic tree, if you will, um, so when this color wheel would spin around, then the tree would be changing colors because we didn't have a string of lights or anything like that on our tree. We just had this color wheel that would shine the light and would constantly change colors of the tree because a metal tree or a metallic tree would reflect that light. So that's the earliest Christmas tree I can remember us having as a family.
So is that why we always had an artificial tree growing up?
Well, the the second tree we got, and I don't remember what year we got it, but we went out and we did get an artificial tree that actually looked like a pine tree. So it was green. Um, I think we just got rid of the metallic tree. Um, and I don't remember if we put lights on it or not. I don't think we did. But my mom had a lot of decorations, and by this time, I made things at school that we could hang on the tree, and I don't remember if we still had the color wheel. I think that eventually just kind of crapped out because it was old to begin with. And we had this cardboard fireplace that I would always set up, and I just thought this was the coolest thing because we never had a fireplace at any house that we ever lived in St. Paul. So I don't even know if you can get these things anymore. I haven't seen one in quite a few years, but it was basically a fireplace made out of cardboard, and I would put it together and set it up in the living room, and there'd be like a cardboard fire that, and there was this little red light that plugged in behind the cardboard fire, and so it would flicker, so it looked like there was kind of a fire in this cardboard fireplace. If there was a real fire in this cardboard fireplace, it would have totally burned it up and burned the house down. Um, so that's what we had. We had uh, throughout the rest of the 70s, we had this artificial tree with blue bulbs. I just remember those blue bulbs more than anything, and a cardboard fireplace. And we would my brother and I both had stockings that we would hang on the fake fireplace, on the cardboard fireplace, and I don't think my parents put anything in the stockings because it would have tipped the cardboard fireplace over. So we didn't do that, but um, yeah, that was kind of my memories of the decorations, and my mom had some Christmas decorations she would hang on the wall, and tinsel and stuff, but um, she didn't have a lot of stuff. I don't remember there being a gob of stuff like you guys had growing up because I married somebody that just had a ton of stuff, and and we'll get to that in a little bit when we talk about your memories of growing up as a kid and celebrating Christmas. But um, the the actual the actual hubbub of Christmas was a little bit less in the 70s. It wasn't as big a deal. Probably the most exciting part was getting the Sears catalog, which used to be like a phone book, and going through the Sears catalog and looking at all the toys. and my parents always let me pick out one toy each Christmas out of the Sears catalog. And I don't know if they had a Sears credit card or what, but they would order, they would place the order, and then they'd get notified by mail or phone or something when it was in. And my dad and I would go to uh, the I don't even know what you call it, the call window maybe at Sears. And my dad would give them a ticket or a number, and then we'd get the whatever it was that they ordered for me. So that was kind of a big deal every year. As I got to order something out of the Sears catalog, and my parents would order it through Sears, and then my dad and I would go and pick it up.
No, I could like, I guess we could take turns of like flip flopping because you mentioned tree. I remember my first Christmas tree. I have no idea where you got this thing, but it was just like this green pole, and then it had all these branches that were color coordinated. So like it was like this branch. It looked like a fake pine tree branch, and at the end of it was painted like orange. So you had to find like the orange hole to like stick that in because it had like layers of like the big branches to the skinnier branches, and then like the piece that you put on top. And that was our tree for like the first 12 years of my life, I think, until we had like a mice problem. Do you remember this or where you got that tree from?
Yeah, that's actually the tree. My mom gave me that tree. Um, that's the tree I had as a kid. So um, the when we got, I was probably 12 or 13 or something when we got that tree, and so when you guys started, um, getting into Christmas, my mom gave me that tree. So we had that tree. Oh gosh, up until the early 2000s when we lived on Paperjack Drive, and then we started getting real trees after that.
What do you prefer?
Well, the we had to experiment. If you remember, the first year we got a real tree, um, the thing had really long pine needles and it shed like crazy. I mean, we had pine needles all over the living room carpet for weeks after Christmas that were poking us in our feet, and so we never got that kind of tree again. I don't even know what it was. It was some kind of a fir tree. Um, and so it took us a while to kind of experiment and figure out what tree was best to get.
But do you prefer like the smell of a real one or do you like the look of an artificial tree?
Well, certainly the artificial tree was easier to deal with and put it up and pack it away and stuff. Um, when we started getting real trees, if you remember, Andrew, I would take that artificial tree, and for a couple of winters, I would set it up in the front yard and still put a string of lights on it, so it would be out in front of our house, um, and I would have to secure it so the wind didn't blow it over. But I for a couple of years anyway, I'd put it out in the front yard along with other Christmas decorations that I hung up on the house, and then I think when we wound up moving away from that house, I think that's when we disposed of the tree.
So that actually leads to my next question. Unless you had a list, you mentioned trees, stockings, and then you just talked about outside. So what's like your memories, your early memories of like decorations when it comes to Christmas time?
Well, my dad never put anything on the house, so we never had lights on the house or anything like that. I remember going to my grandparents' house in Star Prairie, and they always had um, like these candles, these I don't know, they're like 4 feet high, or maybe not that big, and they would you plug them in, they're plastic, and they had these light up candles. Um, uh, One on each side of their front door. And I just thought that was so cool. I would look at that for hours. Well, not for hours, but I just thought that was so cool. And so when I started having my own family, Andrew, I that's why we always had those candles. and one of them actually came. We had three of them. One of them actually came from my grandparents. I don't know where the other one went, but uh, yeah, that's why we always had those candles, because that was a tradition that I thought was really cool that my grandparents did. So that's why I got those candles, and we always had them in front of our front door.
And speaking of your grandparents, you mentioned the Thanksgiving episode. You guys went to Star Prairie and you had a lot of Thanksgiving at your grandparents' house. Was that like your average Christmas time?
Well, we would go out there for Christmas once in a while. Um, I can remember one Christmas because my dad had a lot of siblings, and um, they would come and bring their kids. So there was always lots of cousins in the house that I maybe saw two or three times a year, two for sure. And I remember one Christmas, and I didn't understand this at the time, but one of my dad's brothers had been recently divorced. Um, and I didn't know a lot about divorce or what it meant or anything. 'Cause I was still pretty young. Um, but his kids were there, and I remember, Grandma and Grandpa always had a tree, and everybody got like an envelope with, with a $2 bill or something like that, because $2 bills used to be a bigger thing in the '70s. Um, and I remember one year that uh, two of my cousins just got lots of presents, and I didn't get why they were getting all these presents. And then my mom explained to me later that, well, um, my uncle didn't get to see his kids very much, because he's divorced, and so he was all those presents were coming from my uncle to his kids, which were my cousins, and, and then I understood a little better, but again, I still didn't really understand why he didn't get to see his kids more, and he had to give them their presents at grandma's house. So. Um, that was kind of a weird memory, and I still remember. It's kind of a weird thing to remember, but uh, we didn't go to Grandma's house at Starbury very much for Christmas, because usually if it fell in the middle of the week, my dad had to work the next day, um, and usually it's colder at Christmas. Used to have a lot of bad weather. I can remember some Christmas Eves where the weather was really bad, so we didn't go anywhere Christmas Day. So we pretty much stayed home. We stayed home Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
So when it comes to you just mentioned some. Oh, you're talking about like the presents, everything. I guess I can just list a handful of things. Or did you have a list of what you want to touch on today exactly?
Well, I remember, um, we've talked about trees, we've talked about decorations, uh, and I guess going forward, uh, my brother and I didn't get a lot of presents. We maybe got three each, um, growing up. My parents didn't have a lot of money, and um, we always got a Santa gift. I can remember sitting on Santa's lap, and my mom never took a picture or anything, but she always got me to a Santa Claus somewhere in a mall, or well, no, there weren't malls in the '70s really. So I don't know where she used to find Santa Claus people. Uh, maybe at a Walgreens or something. But I can remember asking Santa for different things, and I would usually get those things Christmas morning. Christmas Eve we would open our presents, and then Christmas morning we would get our Santa present. So, and that would be left by the fireplace. The Christmas Eve gifts we got were always wrapped under the tree, and then Christmas morning by our fake cardboard fireplace would be the gift that Santa left, because in theory Santa came down the chimney, and came through the cardboard fireplace, and left a gift there, even though that was physically impossible. But anyway, I can remember one year. there was this action figure. Well, they didn't have action figures back then. They were just called dolls or dolls for boys. Like GI Joes were they weren't action figures and they were dolls like Barbie or Ken or whatever. Boys had GI Joe dolls, and there was something called Big Jim, and I really wanted this doll called Big Jim because uh, he you would get like this. He'd have this karate outfit, and you could push his back, and there was like this button that you pushed in, and he could chop a piece of wood in half. They gave you a plastic piece of wood that was already scored in the middle, so it would cut in half. And you could also flex his arm, and his muscle would get big. And they had a series of these dolls. They had Big Jim and Big Jack and Big Josh and Big Jeff, and I had three of them. And I would get GI Joe dolls as well, and uh, and what since I was a big fan of pro wrestling as a kid, I would use these dolls to wrestle. Because back then there weren't wrestling action figures, and I can remember being a kid going, God, I wish they had action figures of like Vern Gagne and Billy Robinson and the Crusher and stuff. That'd be really cool. Instead of me using my GI Joe dolls and pretending they were different wrestlers I'd see on TV. Of course, Big Jim had the muscles, so he would be superstar Billy Graham. Um, so uh, I can remember getting that as a gift. I can remember one year my parents got Bruce and I Rockin' Sockin' Robots, and that was a lot of fun. You had this yellow boxing ring, and you'd push buttons, and there'd be a blue robot and a red robot, and they would you'd try to punch the other guy's head, so it would pop up on sort of this spring release thing. And Rock'em Sock'em Robots was a lot of fun. But my brother and I played that for hours on Christmas Eve. It was just a lot of fun. Um, I can remember I got a guitar one year. My dad asked me if I wanted to learn how to play guitar, and I was 7 at the time. So I got this guitar that would have been 1970. Um, I don't really remember a lot of the other things I used to get for gifts, but those are a few. I think I got my Nerf football one year for Christmas, or that might have been a birthday, but um, that's what I remember in terms of gifts. Opening gifts on Christmas Eve, and then you get your Santa gift on Christmas Day. And I carried that tradition into our family, Andrew, because when your mom grew up, she had to wait until Christmas morning to open all her gifts. So when I told her that no, we're going to open gifts on Christmas Eve, and then you get your Santa gift on Christmas morning, mom was all for that. Your mom was all for that. So she adopted my tradition right off the bat. There's no arguing or questions about that. And so when you guys were growing up, that's what we did. Christmas Eve was all the gifts were opened, and then Christmas morning is when you got your Santa gift.
Man, that's such a great tradition. I still to this day like kind of believe in that, kind of go by that. Um, Christmas Eve was always my favorite as a kid. Like even in school, everybody be all excited for Christmas Day. I'm like, whatever. December 24th is like my day because I always like 4th of July, Halloween. But yeah, Christmas Eve still has a soft spot in my heart because that's what we did. And yeah, I remember that we would like get our presents under the tree, 5 or 6 each. And then when we got older, we would buy presents for ourselves and then have like pizza or something at night. If it was snowing, we would go sledding. Just kind of hang out all night long as we can until we passed out. But yeah, Christmas Eve was just always such a we're all getting together. Even if we got older and everybody kind of started having the cell phones or smartphones, like Christmas Eve was just always that family time around the tree, candlelight service. Um, I don't know, playing a game like a family game or a board game. Yeah, like Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve are always really special in our house as a immediate family. And that's something I still think about to this day. And I appreciate that. And I always wondered, I heard that story before, that was something you guys did. Um, 'Cause where was Santa, you said? Was Santa at a dealership? Was it like a Big Lots or something? Like,
I think it was usually like a Walgreens or a Woolworths, maybe Sears. I think now that I say Sears, I think Sears used to be this huge department store. The only memory you have of Sears is it being in Maplewood Mall in Maplewood, Minnesota, and but Sears back in
not
the
my own.
day. What's that?
Sears are like everywhere. When I was in Houston, like down here in Orlando, like,
I mean, as a kid, though, the only
oh yeah,
Sears I knew about was in Maplewood Mall. But in the '70s, Sears was an actual department store. It had like three or four levels, and just everything you needed or anything you wanted to look for was in the Sears department store. And when Targets and Walmart started coming about, the Sears department store became a thing of the past. And they still had their Christmas catalog for quite a few years where you could order stuff, and you can still order stuff through Sears, but it's certainly not like it was in the '70s. Sears was the go-to, especially in the Midwest. Montgomery Ward's was another one. I don't even think that exists anymore. But yeah, Sears was the go-to when you were looking for gifts in the '70s.
because you mentioned a Sears catalog will come out, and you would circle a toy in there. Do you have the Fleet Farm catalogs, or was that not until the 90s?
Yeah, Fleet Farm wasn't a thing. Um, but I'm really glad because Sears had quit making their catalogs by the time you guys were kids. So I'm really glad that Fleet Farm did that when they would have their Toyland open up in the second week of November, and they'd put out a catalog ahead of time. And whenever we got this catalog in the mail, I mean, you guys would fight over it because you guys all wanted to look at the catalog just like I did as a kid. Only I didn't have siblings to fight over or fight with about who gets to see the catalog first. So you guys got to see this catalog, and we usually maybe have I tried to get two or three of them if I could, or at least two, so there wasn't as much fighting about it. But I'm sure you can remember how exciting that was to look through the catalog and see what all the new toys were.
It definitely, yeah, that was always that excitement every year, kind of seeing like something you maybe seen before, but because it was the first time, it was really impressive. And that's like every single year when it comes to snow. Rather if it's Thanksgiving or something, like the first snowfall, you just sit there and stare at it forever. And then by like February or March, you're like, all right, come on. Like, come on, I'm done with the snow. But like, is there like memories you have of like, I don't know, snowman, snowball fight, snow forts, sledding, like that you did around Christmas time? Like outside adventures?
Um, my brother and I would occasion. I remember one year we made a snow fort, and he had this idea, and it was actually a pretty good idea, to build the walls of. It was kind of like an igloo. He built the walls, and then he sprayed it with the hose, so there was like a coating of ice on it, so it was more solid. And then he found this big piece of plywood. Uh, God, I don't know where he found it, but it was like 6 by 6, 6 feet by 6 feet, and he put it on the wall, so we had a roof, and then he put snow on top of the plywood, um, so we actually you didn't know the plywood was there. It just looked like a fort or an igloo or whatever the case may be, and we could actually go inside this thing and and have an actual fort. And the only problem is it was cold. Yeah, it was fun to go in there, and we had a fort outside, but it was cold. Another year, my brother decided he was going to make a hockey rink in behind our house, and it wasn't very big, but yeah, we went out and played hockey all the time. I mean, it wasn't a very big rink, but that's where I got to my love of hockey. Is my brother and I would always play hockey, and he'd shoot pucks at me. I'd always be the goalie, so I had marks all up my legs and stuff. Um, and and he even found some green paint in the basement and painted the letter N, and like Nancy, on the ice, and then waited for the paint to dry, and then put another coating of ice over the top of that, so it stayed there. And the N represented the North Stars, because growing up in Minnesota, we follow the Minnesota North Stars, who are the Dallas Stars now. Um, and so my brother went all out. He made this rink, and God, we had hours and hours of fun on that before Christmas, after Christmas. So that was kind of a winter memory that I've had for a long time, was my brother and I playing hockey behind the house on this little rink that he made.
Do you have ice skates?
I did have a pair of I think they might have been my mom's. They were figure skates. They weren't ice skates or hockey skates. So I had figure skates, and I was okay. I was the goalie, so I was falling down all the time anyway to stop the puck. So I wasn't very good, but it was still fun to think I was good.
And then do you have any, were you a fan of sledding? Because I was always a fan of sledding. Like I couldn't ski or snowboard or anything, but like sledding, like no skill to that. Like,
Well, a couple of memories there. When we went to Star Prairie, um, my grandma had a couple. She had like the old sled, like um, well, and even my other grandparent in Osceola, there was like this steep hill right behind the house, and he had the old wood sled. He also had a wood toboggan. So my brother and I would get in this big wooden toboggan and go down this hill, and we'd go pretty far in it. And sleds back in the '60s and '70s used to be wood, with sort of a uh, it was like these iron uh, railing type things that would actually be on the snow, and if the snow was solid, you could really glide down there. It wasn't until the mid to late '70s where plastic sleds were or roll up sleds were a thing. And I did have one of those, and my buddies and I used to go sledding in St. Paul. We'd find a steep hill, and yeah, it was just a lot of fun to go down the big hill, and it was a chore to walk back up the hill and then go down again. But yeah, I mean that's something you could do for hours, and then go home, and your mom would always have hot chocolate ready for you, and you'd have to take off all your wet clothes and take a nice hot bath to warm up. But yeah, that's just part of winter. That was something we always did.
man, I totally forgot about the roll up sleds because that was a big deal to bring to school because you can
Yeah,
roll them up and like cut out like a Folgers coffee can to like put them in so they
yep,
didn't like unroll. And I'm glad you brought up hot chocolate because that was the thing. Um, Hot chocolate, like cocoa, Pedrosa marshmallows, and candy canes. I'm not a huge candy cane fan, but we were talking about candies earlier, and like I've been munching on a bag of these peppermint nougats. Because I remember you guys like our mom like buying them, and then I found like look, this whole bag is empty. It's just been like in my car. I'm bringing to work with me like these peppermint Christmas nougats. They're kind of like a candy cane version of saltwater taffy.
yeah,
Um, because I can't do peanut butter anymore, and I used to eat those black and white or those black and orange Halloween peanut butter kisses every
right.
year. But yeah, so like this is I haven't had these in years. This is probably my last one. So that was always like another thing. Like you could get Reese's all year round, even though they're in the form of a Christmas tree, and like Snickers and like candy canes and stuff like that. But There's something about these. You can only find these around Christmas time, and they're so good. I forgot how good these things are.
Yeah, it's got the little green Christmas tree in the middle of the candy there, and my brother used to really like those. I mean, I was okay with it. I'd eat them, but um, if I remember right, we used to. My dad liked having mixed nuts in the house, and I'm not talking about the kind that are in a can with a lid. I'm talking about actually going out and buying a bag of mixed nuts like walnuts and filberts and pecans and stuff, where you'd have to take this apparatus. It was called a nutcracker, and crack these nuts open so you could eat the nut inside of it. And that was so cool at Christmas time. Because my mom had this little wooden sleigh, and she would fill it up with these nuts, and the nutcracker device handheld thing would be right behind it, and and so I would crack nuts and eat the walnuts and stuff, and that's something my dad liked to do too. He'd like to crack the nuts and eat the nut inside. And I think you can still buy those. I don't see that too often anymore. I think that's kind of a thing of the past. Although Christmas purists, traditionalists, you could probably still find that like at a Fleet Farm or like that. But usually you're not going to find it at a grocery store or Walmart or anything like that.
So you mentioned like the firehouse or the fireplace or the cardboard, the tree, and this nutcracker and the sleigh. Was there any other indoor decorations that like, okay, that came out of the closet, that came out of the attic every year for Christmas?
There probably was. We there used to be this little 2 inch high, well, probably more than 2 inches, 4 or 5 inches high, Santa Claus. That if you wind it up in the back, it would play some kind of Christmas music or Silent Night or whatever, and I would put that in front of the sleigh full of mixed nuts, and so it at least looked like Santa was. He wasn't in the sleigh; he was just in front of the sleigh because we didn't have any any reindeer that I remember of, or I don't think we had a figure of Rudolph that my memory is allowing me to think about right now. Um, so we didn't have a lot of stuff, Andrew. Again, my parents didn't have a lot of money. We grew up in St. Paul and in kind of a impoverished neighborhood, so we didn't have a whole lot of things. But I still remember Christmas being a special time and being excited to get presents and uh, and just celebrate Christmas with the family.
So you mentioned that thing. It's kind of like a music box that you wind up because we had something like that. It was like this figurine, like this porcelain painted figurine of Santa climbing over a chimney, with
Yep.
all of like his gifts, and then you would twist it. I think it was Silent Night. I don't know what it was, or maybe Jingle All the Way. I'm not really sure. Is that the same one that you had that we have?
No, no. The one you're talking about, I bought that sometime in the 2000s. I don't even remember where I got it, but that's a really cool thing, and we still have that. We don't set up decorations in the house too much anymore because we don't have everyone home for Christmas like we used to. So we have a Christmas tree that well, actually, this will be the first year that I haven't had a real tree in quite a while. We've had a fake Christmas tree that I bought in January last year at a discount store for $35, and we've had it up all year, and it still lights up. So that's what we have for our Christmas tree this year. Uh, I don't. I did go out and get a real tree last year. Kind of an interesting story is all the area places that sold live Christmas trees last year ran out, and they wound up closing down early. And I didn't know that, so I went out and got a tree, and everything was closed up. So I called the people and said, "Is it possible I could get one? I'll pay you extra for it." And they said, "Sure, come on out." And I went out there and I got a real tree. Um, and I don't remember how much I gave them. It was quite a bit, and brought it home and set it up. And so I was very thankful. I was able to get a real tree last year, and kind of a special tree because uh, your mom really wanted a tree last year, and it made her feel good to see a tree. And after we were done using it, I decided to go out and buy the fake tree, and we've just had it in the living room ever since because we like Christmas year round.
And like thinking about that, year round is definitely good because there's music year round. By the way, that little Santa thing that we were just talking about,
Yeah.
a few years ago, there was a text message between all the siblings of who called dibs on what. And all I can remember is Emily wants that Santa thing. And then Jordan gets the kitchen table. Um, Even though I want the table, I don't know. He called dibs on that. But Emily really wants that porcelain Santa thing. But that Santa plays music. Which my next question, Christmas music. What's your memories? What's your favorite Christmas song?
Well, I can remember being in grade school, and we talked about this in a previous episode where you stayed in the same classroom all day long, and the music teacher would come into the classroom at a specified time of day, and play his guitar, and we'd have music class right in our normal classroom and sing along to songs and stuff, and he provided sheet music for us for "Joy to the World." uh, old Christmas tree. Um, I'm pretty sure Jingle Bells. Um, don't remember all of them, Andrew. Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So I can remember singing all those songs in school at a very young age, second, third grade, fourth grade, and when I got a guitar, I eventually learned how to play all those songs. So whenever we came out to Wisconsin, my dad always wanted me to bring the guitar and just kind of play for everybody, which I did. Um, and so yeah, playing Christmas songs was something that I learned how to do and always enjoyed singing Christmas songs and even going to church. We didn't have like Christmas Eve services that we went to when I was a kid, but I do remember going to church on Christmas morning occasionally, and just enjoying all the um, church Christmas music. Well, we did "Joy to the World" there too, and "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," and those are more church related Christmas songs. But that was always something that was a lot of fun too. I just love Christmas music.
What's the worst Christmas song of all time? And why is it Grandma got ran over by a reindeer?
uh, I actually don't mind that song. Um, and that came out in the early 80s. I was working at a radio station in Staples, Minnesota, and I remember uh, getting a copy of that song. And I wasn't I was the music director, and I wasn't going to play it because I just thought it was horrible. But we started getting requests for it because people had heard it on other radio stations, and so they would call our station, and our morning guy Bob Holtgren started playing it. And I said, "Fine, you can play it during your shift in the early morning, but that song's not going to be playing at different at during my shift in the late afternoon or middays or anything like that." So yeah, our morning guy Bob, he played it during his shift, and people would request it, And I said, yeah, you're going to have to listen to it in the morning because I'm not playing it. So, yeah, and I think even our station manager uh, put the kibosh on it because he thought it was a horrible song, grandma getting run over by a reindeer. So I think eventually we didn't even play it anymore. And that was in 1983 or in 1984 when I was in radio.
I know this will be a side question, but everything on radio nowadays, the touch of a computer. How would you play music back then?
Well, we had 45 records, so we had turntables in the studio, and we would talk on the radio, and the switch to start a song was at our fingertips. So we could start the record and still be talking. And the rule of thumb is you can talk over the intro music, but once the singing starts on the song, you have to be done with whatever it is you're talking about because you don't want to be talking over the words of the song.
Definitely don't want to be talking over when grandma gets struck by a reindeer. Definitely not. But like speaking of reindeer, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is an all-time classic, along with Frosty the Snowman, Little Drummer Boy, The Grinch, and everything. As a kid, the '70s, rather if it was Charlie Brown, these Christmas specials that you can watch every year. Now they sell them on DVD. Like you have to have memories of those from the '70s.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was a big deal. Most of those Christmas classics were created in the '60s. I think Charlie Brown Christmas was either 1964 or 1966, somewhere in there. And initially, there's a great story about the Charlie Brown Christmas that I didn't know about until several years ago. That the when Charles Schulz was approached, he's the creator of Peanuts, the Charlie Brown characters, and when he was approached by, oh, I think it was CBS, to make a Christmas special, uh, and they really loved it when I mean, they had already sold it. They had sponsors. They knew what night it was going to be on TV. Um, and when Charles Schulz brought the finished product to the CBS executives, and the part came where Linus is quoting Bible scripture, explaining what the true meaning of Christmas was all about to Charlie Brown. Linus quoted from the Gospel of Luke from the Bible, and the CBS executive said, "Whoa, no, we can't have that in this special." And Charles Schulz basically stood his ground and said, well, if you don't like that part of the cartoon or that part of the Christmas special, then you're not going to have it at all. You're not going to have the Charlie Brown Christmas because that's a part of it and it's staying in there. So the CBS executives didn't know what to do, and they had already sold it. I mean, they had sponsors. I mean, it was ready to air on CBS on like the first Monday in December. So they decided, well, we'll go ahead. The switchboard's going to light up. People are going to complain because there's Bible scripture in this cartoon, and people don't want to hear that. So the program aired, and Snoopy was running amok, and they had the dance scene and the wonderful music which I heard today at work. I love the Charlie Brown theme for Christmas, and sure enough, the scene where Linus quotes the Bible scripture explaining what the true meaning of Christmas is all about, uh, with the angels of the Lord uh, appearing to the shepherds in the field, saying, "Today Christ the Savior has been born." And the CBS executives go, oh, "Here we go. People are going to be calling. They're going to be complaining," and they were right. The switchboards lit up. people were calling in, but they weren't complaining. They were saying, that is the greatest thing. Thank you so much for doing that. And for every year since that episode first aired, the Charlie Brown Christmas is something that everyone looks forward to watching. It's one of the all-time Christmas classics. And uh, oh, it was somewhere in the 90s where TV Guide put out the top 100 moments in TV history, and Linus reading Bible scripture was one of the top 100 moments of television history, and and I think that says a lot for Charles Schultz, who stood his guns, or uh, stood by his beliefs, and didn't let the CBS executives push him around. And to this day, nobody cares that Linus is reading Bible scriptures. That's just a part of tradition. Um, and that was the only Christmas special to ever do that. The Grinch, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Now, the Little Drummer Boy is kind of biblical based because that song, The Little Drummer Boy, is about this troubled kid who, when he gets to see Jesus and Mary and Joseph in the manger, he starts playing his drum. And I've never really heard if there was any backlash on that or not. But the Little Drummer Boy is very biblical based, um, and that came out sometime around the late '60s. And I haven't seen that actually in quite a few years. I think I have it on DVD, but um, the Little Drummer Boy would be the only other Christmas special that makes any kind of reference to Jesus or the Bible.
What's your favorite one though? Is it the Charlie Brown special?
Um, as a kid, I was the Grinch was always my favorite. Uh, the Dr. Seuss was such a clever individual, and when they came out with that special with Boris Karloff, who is famous in Hollywood for being Frankenstein back in the 30s and stuff. He was the narrator of the Grinch That Stole Christmas, and he had this wonderful, scary type voice, and the little dog that the Grinch has kind of makes the whole special. It was just fun to watch this little dog be excited about Christmas and stuff, and Grinch just uh, getting mad at him for being this happy dog, and it all. Of course, everyone knows how it ends, and it's just that the Grinch That Stole Christmas by far was my favorite Christmas special for many years.
Is there like a Christmas movie that you like that would watch? Like, were Christmas movies a thing as it in the 70s yet?
They were, but I really don't remember. I remember going to a movie theater once with my mom, where there was this really, I don't remember what it's called, but it was this dumb Christmas movie where Santa was sitting in a sleigh on a beach in Miami, and didn't have any reindeer or anything, and couldn't take off because he was stuck in a beach. Um, and then they went into this story about Jack and the Beanstalk, and how Jack believed that he could uh, beat this giant, and so it took this weird turn, and I don't remember, like I said, what the movie was called, but eventually uh, the Jack and the Beanstalk story pretty much took up the whole movie, and then at the end you saw Santa get unstuck out of the beach and get on his way. But yeah, it was a very dumb Christmas movie. Um, but there were other ones, A Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart, of course, and Miracle on 34th Street, and those were movies that you could see on TV. And I watched a few of them, but was never really a big movie person in terms of Christmas until um, Home Alone and Jiggle All the Way and stuff like that came about in the 90s.
What was the name of that Miami Santa movie?
I don't know. I don't remember what the name of it was, but it was a horrible movie. Uh, and like I said, it was less based on Santa Claus and more based on Jack and the Beanstalk, the child book. Um, so, but I remember going to the Uptown Theater on Grand Avenue in St. Paul with my mom to see that, and yeah, just a horrible movie. So I think that was the one and only time that I went to a Christmas movie at a theater.
And speaking of Santa, by the way, your beard looks great. By the way, it's just very well trimmed and everything, like the patch, everything for it, got the color, matching the eyebrows perfectly. Just it looks really good. When you were talking there, I was just like, man, his beard and his eyebrows just like have that bright white, kind of like the snow. And we got to talk about snow next week. I think I'm gonna wrap up for today's episode. We're gonna do a part one and part two. Just want to talk about more, and I'm gonna end today. Thank you, Brian. By the way, I know you gotta get going. I'll talk to you next week. We're going to just jump right into memories of school and pageants. And I got a handful of questions I want to ask you first. Because I always heard a rumor of like how Christmas felt when you're a kid to when it was adult. So I'm going to ask you that and more on that. But we wanted, I thank you for your time, and we thank you every week for listening right here on YouTube at That 70s Pod. That's That 70s Pod. You can like, share, subscribe, listen to video, leave a comment of your Christmas memories and other topics you want us to hear about. We have some handful of things coming up. And always here, always on every week, and always here support us is KingLineNutrition.com. I'm looking at this website now. For the best snacking out there, use the promo code LOCKHART. That's LOCKHART. You can go there now and have your edible bakeable cookie doughs, eggless cookie doughs you can just eat right from there. Protein nut spreads, protein pancakes, protein mud cakes, green. It's gluten-free. Everything's 100% plant-based, vegan, vegetarian, whatever you want to say. There's so many different cookie jars out there, different cookie mixes, and it is at Christmas time. So I'm looking at the list right now because you have Santa sugar cookies. Well, there's Captain Crunch, and then gingerbread man, peppermint Oreo, and cookie butter. There's carrot cake out there. There's white chocolate cookies and cream, lemon poppy seed, banana marshmallow moon pie. So much on this. That's KingLineNutrition.com. Go get the edible. There's animal crackers flavored, brown sugar Pop-Tart flavor, and you can eat that with the promo code LOCKHART, LOCKHART, and then you can wear that t-shirt or wear a t-shirt while you're eating your edible cookie dough from godlyfatherapparel.com. Go to godlyfatherapparel.com, and that's promo code is LOCKHART for 15% off. That's LOCKHART15. That's Lockhart. And just go shop, figure out, get some tees, hoodies, hats, exclusive bundles with some fanny packs. That's godlyfatherapparel.com with promo code LOCKHART15. That's Lockhart15. A lot of stuff might be sold out right now, but you can request a certain size. They are doing well for themselves, so help them out, and then you can also get 15% off. And when you go there right now, they'll ask you if you want to get a gift card. You just press yes, and the gift card's anywhere from $5 to $100, so you can use that for your checkout. We thank you again for listening here on YouTube. That's Bryan Lee. That's 70s Pod with Bryan Lee here on YouTube. And check out Instagram, SCVW Action Figure, and Andrew Always Acting on Instagram. We'll be uploading, and we'll see you next week. We'll be uploading our next episode next week, a part 2 of Christmas Memories. Now you know, and as Brian would say, peace.